Welcome to another episode of Drops of Science, the multilingual podcast that selects for you the latest updates and discoveries in natural sciences. Today's first news takes us to Italy, among small mammals that break records. A recent study by Dr. Paniccia and collaborators at the UROC Research Institute for Alpine Environment announced the discovery of the pygmy shrew, Sorex minutus, at altitudes much higher than previously known. This tiny mammal, between 4 and 6.4 centimeters long, lives in the humid ecosystems such as forests, meadows, and shrublands, where the thick ground cover offers shelter and food resources. To support its high metabolism, it feeds several times a day on prey smaller than 6 millimeters. While sampling invertebrates with pitfall traps in the eastern Alps of South Tyrol, researchers found one specimen at 3,060 meters near the Swiss border and two others at 3,280 meters in Val Senales. The exceptionality of the discovery lies not only in the altitude well above 2,500 meters, the limit known so far, but also in the age of the animals and the habitats in which they were found. First of all three shrews were young, which suggests that they were born in the vicinity of the areas of discovery, rather than having moved from lower altitudes. The alpine habitats studied are almost devoid of vegetation, dominated by rocks and boulders that offer minimal but sufficient shelter against predators, bad weather, and low temperatures, very different from those typical of this species. Furthermore, the diet at these altitudes could vary, since the prey caught in the pitfall traps and potential food for the shrews exceeded 10 millimeters. The researchers hypothesize that either the traps do not catch all potential prey, or the shrew's diet adapts to include parts of larger prey instead of whole prey. Further studies are needed to investigate this aspect. The discovery raises new questions, such as why the species is now found in high mountains. Among the hypotheses made by the researchers are the inefficiency of traditional traps that may not activate due to the reduced weight of the shrews, the scarcity of studies at such altitudes, and the influence of climate change on the distribution of the shrew. Again, further research will be essential to find answers. We now move to Japan, along the floodplain of the Buto-Kamabezu River, where a group of researchers from the University of Hokkaido studied how aquatic communities change over the seasons in an ecoton, that is, the transition area between still waters, lentic environments, and flowing waters, lotic environment. In this area, in fact, there are both channels with continuous flow and paleolateral channels that, depending on the flows and the connectivity gradient, can dry up or remain connected to the main river for more or less long periods. The researchers classified the site into 4 categories: flowing, always connected, late and early, seasonal connections, and no flow, never flooded. Then they analyzed 4 faunal groups: plankton, benthos, fish, and amphibians, at 3 different times of the year: spring, summer, and autumn, recording the presence of 2 species of amphibians, 11 species of fish, 3 orders of plankton, and 48 families of macroinvertebrates. The results show that in spring, species such as Inubios retardatus, Rana pirica, and Limnephilidae were essential to differentiate the no-flow habitats from the early and late ones. With the arrival of summer, however, some groups of insects disappeared from the ponds, highlighting a clear contrast compared to the site with constant flow. In autumn, the differences between the less connected basins were reduced, while local factors such as depth and water temperature gained importance. According to scientists, the seasonal dynamics of these river environments depends on 2 main factors: hydrological connectivity, which immediately after floods determines which species survive and disperse, and local environmental conditions, which become decisive especially in autumn. Some lotic animals risk finding themselves in real ecological traps when the flow stops, while others, such as fish, adopt different strategies. Some complete their entire life cycle in ponds, and others use them as nurseries before moving to the main river. These results underline the importance of monitoring both spatial and temporal variability in floodplain ecosystems, especially in view of climate change and alterations in the hydrological regime to ensure more effective conservation strategies. We leave Asia to come to Europe, in particular to Germany, to talk about Alan, which is not a person or the name of an animal, but is an acronym for artificial light at night. This type of lighting, especially widespread on streets, contributes significantly to the decline of insects and is often overlooked in environmental conservation strategies. The natural alteration of light and dark is fundamental to the circadian rhythm of all living beings. An alteration of this balance can compromise vital processes and influence essential ecosystem services, such as the nocturnal fertilization of plants by insects themselves. A recent study by the University of Berlin compared old conventional lamps with new custom-made and shielded LED lamps installed in 3 areas of southern Germany. During 55 sampling nights, spread over 2 years, more than 400 Hymenoptera belonging to 18 different groups were captured. In particular, the researchers focused their attention on parasitoid insects, those small natural allies that help control the populations of other insects. In 2021, 26 specimens were collected, divided into 22 species, while in 2022 the number rose to 80, revealing 46 different species. In addition, 88 species of Lepidoptera, potential hosts of these parasitoids, were morphologically identified. The results highlighted an interesting trend. In the areas where conventional lamps remained, the attraction of parasitoids increased significantly in the period following the transformation, while in places equipped with the new custom-made and shielded LEDs, the increase was much more limited. In essence, traditional lamps continue to attract a large number of insects, while the new ones, thanks to a design that limits light dispersion, reduce this attractive effect. The reduction of parasitoid attraction can have a positive implication on ecological balances, in particular with regard to host-parasite interactions and biological control processes. If artificial light at night traps fewer parasitoids, thanks to the shielded or more targeted lamps, these insects remain in their natural habitat and continue to play the role of biological control on Lepidoptera, such as moths. Lepidoptera, in turn, also have an important impact as nocturnal pollinators. The study proposes that the optimized distribution of public lights becomes an integral part of light pollution mitigation strategies, helping to preserve ecological functions, such as biological control of pests, and limiting the negative impact that light pollution has on nocturnal species, and consequently on the entire environment. The next story takes us to cocoa plantations, an essential crop for millions of small farmers in tropical countries that fuels a global chocolate industry worth over $100 billion a year. With demand continuing to grow, improving cocoa production without expanding crops and causing deforestation or using intensive agriculture becomes crucial. A new study from the University of Oxford conducted in Brazil, Ghana and Indonesia, which together account for about a third of global cocoa production, shows how natural pollination plays a key role but is often insufficient. The scientists tested the efficiency of natural pollination by comparing it with hand pollination. To do this, they selected some cocoa fields and assigned them different levels of hand pollination, from 0%, meaning only natural, up to 100%. The results showed that, on average, only about 17% of flowers receive enough natural pollination to produce fruit. In particular, this percentage was 12 in Brazil, 27 in Ghana, and 11 in Indonesia. When the flowers were 100% manually pollinated, production increased significantly everywhere, confirming that cocoa is limited by the scarcity of pollinating insects. Large-scale manual pollination is not sustainable, neither economically nor socially. Therefore, researchers argue that it is necessary to improve the habitat of natural pollinating insects to increase their presence and effectiveness. For example, midges and other small arthropods, important pollinators of cocoa, can benefit from the presence of shade trees and the layer of fallen leaves on the ground, which guarantees humidity and nourishment. In addition, excessively high temperatures during the hot period of the year reduce the yield of the plants, so planting shade trees can mitigate these negative effects. The authors suggest sustainable management that favors natural pollinators, protects soil, and maintains optimal climatic conditions in cocoa plantations, thus ensuring high yields without expanding cultivation and threatening biodiversity. For the last news, we talk about Rupia, aquatic plants present in wetlands all over the world. These plants are extremely tolerant to salinity, grow rapidly, and colonize environments that would be too extreme for other aquatic angiosperms. In Europe, 2 species have been identified, Rupia marittima and Rupia spiralis. However, there is a third called Rupia drepanensis, which unfortunately has often been confused with one of the other 2, being mistakenly treated as synonym despite being a distinct species. Rupia drepanensis is distributed sparsely throughout the Mediterranean area and along the adjacent Atlantic coast, but due to confusion with similar species, its real distribution is not yet well defined. The highest number of records have been recorded in the Iberian Peninsula. However, here the species is in decline due to pollution and hydrogeological changes that seriously affect its habitat. The situation is aggravated by the short time window available for reproduction, between late spring and early summer. Furthermore, high temperatures and eutrophication of wetlands further compromise its reproductive capacity, to the point that in some historical locations it seems to be extinct. In fact, in Portugal it has been classified as critically endangered and considered probably extinct at a regional level. However, a recent discovery made by a team of researchers from the University of the Algarve and the Murcia Oceanographic Center brings new hope for this species. Near Praia dos Cavacos in Portugal, a population of Rupia with morphological characteristics similar to Rupia drepanensis has been identified. The researchers collected samples and thanks to DNA sequencing, it was confirmed that is indeed the species considered now lost in this region. Molecular analyses have shown that the Portuguese population is genetically identical to the reference population already known for Rupia drepanensis, in particular those from Sicily and Spain. In Portugal, the species was found in an extremely restricted habitat, inside a temporary and seasonal pond that forms in the meadow during periods of submersion. This discovery leads to an expansion of the range of the species, as the Portuguese population represents the western limit of the European distribution. This concludes today's episode of Drops of Science. Thanks for staying with us. See you soon, and good science!